Just left us sat there.
Right. Okay. Oh. Hey, we are live.
Fabulous.
Right. Sorry.
Fantastic. Welcome everybody on this Friday evening. A little different to the weather that we've had on recent Fridays. We're back for our bite-sized webinars. Familiar faces, myself and Carl. And we are thrilled to be joined with a colleague, a fantastic colleague, Neil Simkin. Won't steal his thunder. He works over in Wales, which he will indulge you and tell you some of the bits and pieces he's been going through, I'm sure, during lockdown and up to the current day. Carl, straight over to you. How's your week been?
I've got headphone envy. It's the first thing that I'm going to say. Look at those tins. Yeah, it's been an interesting week. So my son has a gecko, so that's his birthday present. So that's probably got nothing to do with what we're going to talk about, though.
And you have a longer beard.
That's a relief, because this is could be a strange meeting. This wasn't what I signed up for. And so I've had to learn some new skills. I'm not a fan of live insects, but hey. And we were AGP. We were back at it, placing implants. Wow.
Earlier on in the week, and taken some out, unfortunately. But that's not the story. No. No, it was a case of dental tourism gone very, very badly, which was a real shame. And then that was a practice that has started back, and it was interesting to see, because they've had a lot going on in that practice. So they're refurbing it, and what a great time to get the refurb finished. But unfortunately, the builders were obviously struggling to finish it, so they haven't got as far as they thought they were going to get. But it would have been perfect timing for them, really, if they'd have managed to get it all done. So they're still undergoing a bit of building work, which the builders have been great in terms of access for patients and things like that. So they wouldn't have had to close, apart from somebody telling them that they had to close, which weren't the builders. And they've got a very good system triaging their patients. Everybody that we saw was very, very grateful to be seen, really grateful to be seen, actually, which was really nice. One of them, we talked to this about in some of the previous webinars, hasn't been out of the house during the whole of lockdown. So it was their very first sort of travel outside the house, somewhere new, which for them was something quite nervous. They were quite nervous about it, and what they could do, what they couldn't do, and quite apprehensive in terms of sort of how they felt generally just coming outside the house again, almost like agoraphobia. But once we got talking and chatting away, they were absolutely fine. I don't think, obviously it's not great for them coming out of the house and then realizing that you're going to be all PP'd up. So that's kind of the first thing they see. It probably would have been nicer for them to go to the supermarket, or if they'd have waited a couple of days, they'd go to the pub. But
prior to seeing you.
Prior to seeing me. Yeah. So that was sort of nice to get back into it, and nice to, get some sort of implants placed and get working again. And it flowed really well. I think that the advantage for us is that we're used to PPE. We're used to the gowning and the donning and the doffing and the sterilization aspect of it. It's just second nature. And so with the staff, because they're just used to the process. So it wasn't alien to anybody. It was just the little fine tuning of things, keeping the patients in the car, keeping the distances from the patients. The waiting room wasn't open, so they all had to sit outside, which was, and I mentioned it to you guys, was where my brother came up with a great idea. And he said, why don't you get a license to sell alcohol from the waiting room, and then you can get it pretty much packed full of people. You don't have to worry about all these regulations, because you can all be 1 meter apart. I don't know what the full regulations are, obviously. It might be table service only, but they don't have to wait in the car, at least, anyway. And they can have a pint before they, or a gin and tonic, I don't know, whatever it is, or lemonade, coffee.
You know what? It just highlight the craziness of the rules that we're surrounded by at the moment.
Well, he's not clinical, and he's not clinical
entrepreneurial.
Yeah. And so when we're having these, we don't have these conversations all the time, but I obviously don't just rant on air like this, but I do. He sort of says, how's it going? And I'll tell him what's sort of going on and what we're going through. And he just, well, hang on a sec. If you can go down the pub as of tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you can do this and do that, but you've got to do that with your sort of social distancing and your protocols for your patients. And I said, oh yeah, because we're dangerous. And he just thinks it's absolute nuts. And it's good sometimes to get that kind of feedback from somebody that has absolutely nothing to do with anything to do with dentistry. And also, he's a bit nuts. Sorry, Matt, but you are. Let's say, well, he'd be the first to admit it. Inherited, maybe. I shouldn't say anything else.
I wasn't going to say anything, really, Neil.
Yeah. And then getting on top of the sort of the processes again, just tidying up some of the processes and making sure they're all fine tuned. And then today was it was nice. There was a meeting had down at a private hospital, and again very similar to what we're doing. So they do. I was there looking around at what all sorts of things really, but it was interesting to see that it's got a meet and greet process. Again, patients in the car park, masks on, hand sanitizing before you come in, temperature taken. Mine was quite low, apparently, which was a bit of a worry because it was lower than it should be. And I don't know why it was low. Obviously, the heart had stopped beating, ear stone.
As long as it's not high, it doesn't matter.
I've come through those veins.
Yeah. Yeah. It might have been the aircon that had been blasting in my face for an hour and 45 minutes. But it was interesting in that there were a number of people sort of sitting quite happily in a waiting area, socially distanced as well, all with masks on. But there was no kind of what am I going to say, nervousness or seemed to be worried atmosphere. Everybody was very casual. Everybody was happy. The processes were all working really, really well. And so it was nice to see another environment that wasn't dentistry sort of doing the same sort of things and sort of coping quite nicely with it. All the staff were absolutely fantastic. There were no splash screens, which was interesting. But then I've seen a couple of clinics very similar to that where they haven't got the splash screens. And I think that's it sort of goes to show you sort of can interpret the guidelines and use them to what you think are correct for your environment. And they obviously felt that they didn't want to, I shouldn't say this, should I? Well, I haven't said who they are, so I can say it. They didn't want to upset their beautiful reception desk by drilling holes in it. For us, I'm going to shut up now because I'm getting myself into trouble. And that's been the week so far. Educational wise, things have been a little bit quiet since the exams are finished, but still, building on that and going forward with how we deliver that really. And I think that we're going to be delivering much more online content. Well, I know we are because I've had the instructions. So we're going to be delivering the lectures in an online format, and as we go forward over the next few months, probably into the new year, with the online webinar, so they get to log in, look at the lectures, and then they get the webinar, which is very different. It's not didactic. They never really didactic, but it's not a regurgitation of the lecture. It's more of a Q&A that they get to ask. And I think it's quite a good way of delivering the content, actually. So I think that might be the way that we possibly go forward with some of that educational side. It's interesting to see how that we've managed to deliver online content to postgraduate students, but I was discussing this, and the schools haven't managed to deliver any online content to my little fella.
No.
Anything you want to talk about schools if you're listening? But,
well, my daughter's starting at a new school in September, and they've never actually they've never closed. They were online 9 o'clock until 3 o'clock every day,
Brilliant.
All classes all the way through. But where she is at the moment, there was all sorts of hurdles and things that seemed to be constantly in the way. So yeah, very, very odd. And again, it seems teaching, dentistry, so many other professions, just so many bizarre interpretations of guidelines that some people will use to their advantage, and let's get on and do it this way. But so many others seem to say, "Oh, right, no, we can't do that, can't do that, can't do that." And I think that's the thing. These guidelines are so open to interpretation. It's not helpful. But hopefully, the wheat from the chaff will sort itself out over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
But like you said, Carl, ultimately what we're doing isn't all that much difference, really, from a clinical perspective. The only difference in our surgeries, it sounds like where you're working, is just that patient journey and that patient flow. So it's doing what we've always done.
Yeah.
With a bit of extra fancy stuff.
Yeah. For now, and hopefully I can't see that lasting all that much longer either, to be honest.
I think that was probably the big worry, is that how that was being kind of sort of
overplayed.
Yes, that's the word. Yeah. And still is in part.
Well, yeah, it feels like one of those things they've sort of committed to the idea, and even though possibly it's maybe a little bit over the top in some areas, certainly certain places you do need it, but for certain things I don't think you really do. But they've committed to it now, so they feel they've got to stick with it.
Yeah. Once you've taken that dive off that cliff, then you know bring out the parachute now.
So Neil, for you, I mean, when we say, when did you go back? I appreciate that you've never been away as such, but can you give us some insight into how lockdown and, as I said, up to the current day has been for you?
Yeah, well, lockdown started, as we all know, end of March. But at that point, the Welsh CDO seemed to be quite ahead of the game. She was aware the UDC concept was going to take time to get up and running. So she basically told us that we had to stay open and treat emergencies on a non-AGP basis. So extractions, dressings, antibiotics, all those things. But we were still able to do face-to-face in a managed way. And we've been doing that ever since. There was all sorts of different plans put in place for how Welsh dentistry was going to de-escalate. But on the 26th of June, we had a memo at 5 o'clock saying that we could de-escalate the following Monday. So we had 2 days notice to crack on, which was fabulous. So none of us really have as of yet, but we started back on Wednesday with a much more face-to-face in that sort of managed way, with patient logistics sort of coming to the fore. But again, just doesn't feel that different to what we were doing. I think we're due to start AGP in a couple of weeks' time and start moving forward there. So yeah, we've never really been away. We've been there all the way through, keeping on top of patients, keeping those lists managed. And I know some of my colleagues from English practices have literally got hundreds of patients they need to see. I mean, I've got a fair few I need to see, but it's only about 20 or 30 patients, because most of them we were able to keep on top of throughout lockdown. So it's been an adventure. Doing dentistry over the phone is not something I don't think anyone trained to do, and it's not something I ever really want to do again. No. But I much prefer the face-to-face. But as Carl suggested there before, everyone wearing masks all the time, that's going to take a bit of getting used to for some patients, because facial expression and engagement is such a key part of what we do, and having to do all the patient facing with a mask on is going to be difficult for some patients to get on board with, I think.
Yeah.
But so Wales, I think we were a pretty good start with, and like I say, just lost our way a little bit in the middle there. We sort of got lost in a little bit of contract reform and a little bit of political juggling, but come out of it all of a sudden, and like I say, the end is now in sight, and couple of phases now. The next phase is to treat just the patients that have been in pain for the last 3 months and need some AGP treatments. Then the patients that were halfway through treatment, and then back to normal dentistry as soon as that. So we haven't got any timelines now. Again, at the end of May, the timelines were suggested as sort of July, October, and then January. Now it's just as and when you're ready, move on to the next one.
Okay, that seems a little bit more sensible.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah,
a lot of these things have probably taken with a bit of sense. We've echoed it on so many webinars. Common sense.
It's not all that common.
Well, as we all know.
Yeah, as we've discovered. Yeah.
And the feeling within the practice, Neil, you know, I'm always very keen with all the people that I've been talking to. How are your staff feeling? You know, the team.
I think it's been a bit of a roller coaster for all of them. I think in March and early April, where we was still very much an unknown, and this new killer virus was going to cleanse the planet. I think they were very, very nervous. But I think as time's gone on, I think within the practices across the population, I think I wouldn't say complacency, but maybe a bigger acceptance of what the situation actually is. And the nurses who we had, one or two who were absolutely no way am I going into practice in the surgery with AGP, and now, you know what, we're being fit tested next week, let's get on there, let's crack on. I think they've started relearning what we're there for. It's not about sort of, I don't know, it's about patient care, isn't it, really, at the end of the day?
100%.
And there are patients, we've had that stream of patients, some of them who've been in pain and battling on since the end of March, early April, and they're constantly on the phone, when is it happening, when is it happening? And now we've got a date. That's helped the nurses engage and other members of staff as well. But no, we've got some, our practice was actually mothballed and furloughed for the lockdown, and we worked out of one a conjoined practice over the road, and the others are looking forward to coming back. I think they're ready now. They've got a better understanding of what's going on, and it's good. So yeah, a few ups and downs, but I think we're all now in a place where we're ready to move on and start helping patients.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's what we're all there for, isn't it? I mean, it has been difficult for the most experienced of the support staff, simply because there's so many scary stories, scaremongering.
Oh, gosh,
you know, all of us, you lose your track for a bit, and then think, hang on, you know, this is what we do day in, day out. Absolutely.
I mean, we're, as part of a corporate, we're fortunate enough to have someone to filter out all that rubbish before it gets us. But even the filtered amount that was coming through to us was still colossal and confusing. So I was speaking to a hygienist who runs a hygiene practice, and she's sort of literally on her own, and she's been monitoring all the information coming in for the last 3 months, and is just confused beyond belief as to what on earth she's allowed to do, what can she do, what can't she do, mixed messages from different departments. It's such a thing. And like Carl said before, it's all about guidelines and interpretation. There are actually no rules as such, I haven't come across anyway, but it's all guidelines. Yeah. And we all interpret them different ways, but because I interpret it one way and someone interprets it a different way, it doesn't mean we're wrong. We're just doing it differently. We're doing it the way that works for us. No one's going to put themselves at risk, or their staff or their patients at risk. We're all doing it the way that we feel that we can manage. And again, as Carl said, this is the stuff we do every day. We've been doing it for years. It's not all that different. Once they're in the surgery, it's the same as ever it was. But yeah, we'll see how it all goes. Just patient expectations, patient management are there, but it's not all that different now. We're getting going again. I've had 3 new patients this week who are signing up to treatment plans, so people are ready to go. I think it's gone on long enough now. I think people need a sense of normality. They need routine. We all crave it more than ever we realised, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think you're right. So in your practice, Neil, I keep saying your practice, but obviously I know that you're between two.
Yeah.
Is there any toys that you've got? So any of the air processors that they've been on about?
Goodness me, yes. So they've sort of exploited my good nature, I think, and I'm on a number of pilots for the company. So it's we've been doing obviously video consultations with Microsoft, predominantly Microsoft Teams, but some patients prefer Skype or Zoom or whatever. We're doing the Straumann Dent2Go Vital Scan. We've got a couple of the Dent2Go options available. So I've been a few of my Invisalign patients or aligner patients, we've done the dental monitoring with. So they've been sent scan boxes and they're keeping up to date with what's going on with that. Which works really well, actually. And then
you might have to expand on that because
dental monitoring.
I know what it is. But,
okay,
I haven't said anything to anybody about it. I kept it a complete secret.
Waiting for me to come on. So dental monitoring basically is we're a rural practice in Mid Wales, so I've got a lot of patients who travel a long way, which obviously over lockdown has been quite a challenge. But we were able to post out aligners, but you've always got that worry is, are they fitting properly? Patients got questions, and at some point you just need to see what's going on. So the Vital Scan uses a mount for your mobile phone and enables a series of standardized photos. So they send those back to us via an app, and we get to see whether the aligners are fitting and what progress is happening. And we can then discuss with the patient whether they stay on their current aligner, whether they move on to their next aligner, or whether actually they're just going to have to sit it out and wait until they can come and see us. So I've got half a dozen patients, all of whom have got 2+ hours traveling to come and see me, who've actually managed to progress through their treatment with close monitoring and close contact with myself. And things have progressed really well. So that's Dent2Go monitoring. The other suite that we've been able to make use of is Dent2Go Vital Scan, which is better done with a scan box, if I'm being wholly honest, the mobile phone mount. But patients have been taking photos or having photos taken of their own teeth. They send that through to me via an app, which uses artificial intelligence to tell me everything that's wrong. So it's quite a thing, really. And at the moment, we're focusing on sort of teeth straightening and hygiene. And I get a report. The patient uploads the photos, and I get a report telling me whether they're suitable for aligners, whether they're not suitable, what their oral hygiene's like, if there are any cavities or issues that are immediately obvious. And I've got all that information there before I even speak to the patient, which I've then done via Microsoft Teams and had a chat with them. That
sort of sounds so familiar. Like there was another company that everybody really got upset about.
Yeah,
but maybe that's just me. But no, I think that it's a step above that, isn't it? From Vital
Scan has got the potential. If you use the scan box in surgery, and I think going forwards, this would be an engagement tool for a TCO. So they would come in, engage with the patient, take these pictures, so that when the dentist does eventually meet them, they've had a full thing. And using the scan box, there's 180 different features of the mouth that it will assess and can diagnose all sorts of bits and pieces. So it's as near to a full exam as you need, really, which is astonishing. We're only using a fraction of those features at the moment because we haven't got the ability to get the better photos, but it'll come. But it's I've managed to engage with a good number of patients, and some of them have already signed up for orthodontic treatment as soon as we can get them in and get things moving. So it's been a really good engagement tool. So there's been a lot out there. And like you were saying about your lectures, Carl, about how a lot of that you feel will move online. I think sort of the teledentistry is now established enough over the last 3 or 4 months to be here to stay. I think there are patients who will want that, especially where we live rurally, and in the cities, if you've got patients who just can't get out and about. Like I said, that we've realised now dentistry is a real face-to-face thing. Having to diagnose things over the telephone is horrible, but if you've got a face-to-face contact, even if it's over online, makes a big difference to patients, and they're instantly reassured. Yeah, and they know who they're speaking to. It's a face they recognise, and it works well.
Without a mask, so they can engage.
Without a mask, absolutely. Facial expressions there. Sometimes that's not a good thing, but it's more often than not, it is useful to sort of get that expression that comes with it. But
they can still see your eyes, you know. So.
Yeah. Oh, hello again. But no, so it's been good to see what's out there, and thankfully the company we're with have really engaged that, and they've given us the opportunity to use all of that. So it's nice to see what's out there and be part of it. But yeah, so for me at the moment, the dental monitoring is superb, especially for my patients who have to travel a lot.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. And as you say, I'd imagine that's there to stay, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Working. Yeah. I mean, there's negligible additional cost to the patient. So and ultimately the saving over the travelling is going to be worth every bit of it.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, it's a good one. And like I said, with the vital scan as well, I think once you got the TCOs back in and we're able to be a bit more close up with patients, I think that will have a fantastic place going forward.
100%.
Yeah,
100% for many, many reasons. I'd have thought. Very, very good. May never need to leave your house again.
Yeah, well, I've had enough of the kids now, to be honest. So it's
He doesn't mean it if you listen.
Yeah, homeschooling was not my forte. Who knew? So.
You know what? I think there is a lot of parents out there. If they didn't know it before, they do now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what about this week, Carl? Today, particularly when you're in the hospital, anything caught your eye? I know what you're like if you see something shiny. Was there any gadgets there that was new or that you'd heard of before but hadn't seen it?
They're kitted up to the hill.
There's some ideas.
So yeah, they've got it's different though. It's a different process for these guys. There wasn't anything that I mean, we're blessed in Newtown with everything that we have, the scanners and the CBCT machine. So it was all geared up for that. The CBCT machine was a bit more advanced, as in probably the top of the range that you can get. So it did everything that you wanted it to do. But they're doing a lot more than just what a dental practice offers. So they're doing day stays, surgical wisdom teeth, but all sorts of everything that goes with a private hospital as well. So it's very, very different in what they're going to be offering. So yeah, there was a heck of a lot of kit, and it all looked fantastic, and I loved all the little gadgets that they had. In terms of one of the conversations that was interesting was the aircon conversation that we had, because they were not aware that you could actually have it on during the checkups and things like that. So they've been sort of sweltering in the sun.
Yeah, I don't think it was any accident that decision was made on one of the hottest weeks of the year. Yeah, you know what? Actually, we'll have it on. Let's put it on.
Put it on. Let them have it on. Yeah, they've suffered enough. There, we'll give them this little bit. Put aircon, and don't get too hot. Remember, don't get too hot.
Wear those big masks with the heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because a lot. Sorry, Kate, I'm not answering your question. Really. Yes, there were lots of gadgets, but they weren't dentally related, so I could chat away. But there was nothing sort of any different to what we're not using in a lot of the practices that we're in. Apart from the foot hand sanitizers that you like.
Oh yeah,
I love those.
Yeah.
I love those. Small places.
I forgot what I was talking about now. Totally lost it now. Sorry.
Well, as the recent practice have told me this week with those foot operated ones, they've said it is so surprising how many of their patients come in with a big dollop on their toe, because it clearly says foot operated. But what's that first thing you do? Oh, it's foot operated. You put your foot on, but what don't you do straight away? So they've been coming in with patients sort of looking
beautifully
down.
Clean shoes.
Yes.
That's having to wear the shoe covers that were suggested at one point.
Well, there you are.
Regulations. Yeah, sorry, regulations. Yeah, the aircon, having the aircon on, obviously non-circulating, so that's a bonus. And I think we were supposed to maybe today hear other things. I know that Leicester's, and what I've really liked is Jason Wong, who's now the deputy CDO. His relationship with the profession in informing dentists in Leicester that it's business as usual in terms of the regulations, rather than going back into lockdown, or they can do that. And it was nice to be given guidance that was clear guidance and allow the dentist to do exactly what Neil said, where you interpret that guidance and you do what you feel is comfortable for your staff. And we've heard that throughout all the talks. It's having that team conversation and discussing what you want to do in your practice. So it was almost carte blanche. Look, if you want to close your doors because you're not comfy, close your doors. And if you go back to prescriptions and triaging your patients that way, if you want to stay open, you can stay open. And that, if that works for your team and your practice, then you can do that. And that was really good to hear.
Well, the good thing about that is it kind of opens up almost the Welsh model then, doesn't it? If you can stay open or you can close, which opens up every opportunity in between. Yeah. So you can sort of pick and choose which level works for you. But
sorry, Neil. Would have been nice from the start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But which is what we had, which was nice. Just going on sort of the realism element. My cousin actually owns a pub down in Oxford, and she's put a message on her page. Actually, we're not reopening tomorrow because although we can, because we're just not confident that things are quite where we need them to be financially. Because they've made the point that actually they can afford to reopen once. What they can't afford to do is reopen, close again, and reopen again. And I wonder if that goes for some of these practices in Leicester, and Jason maybe being savvy to that. I mean, the corporates can help their practices out, but if you're an independent, you can't go through this up and down multiple times. No way.
No, it would kill a lot of people off.
Yeah,
for absolute sure. I think there's a few pubs, from what I can tell, that are they've got the opportunity to open tomorrow, and they are going to open, but they're letting that mad first weekend go by. I'm sure there'll be some madness enough when they open. I can see why. See why. I really can. Well, guys, it's a bite-sized webinar, so I'm going to put that out there and see if there's anything else you two would like to discuss before we get on with our Friday evenings.
Can I put my order in? Can I have Neil? Are you KFC or are you Burger King?
No, definitely KFC. There's a staff discount.
Single box meal for me, please.
I'll see what I can do.
KFC, I can't remember. And some extra hot wings. And I'll have baked beans as my. No, I'll have corn on the side. Not that I've ever been.
Messy business. You can't do corn in the car. What's all going on with that?
Yeah, to be fair. Neil, thank you so much for joining us this week.
That's been an absolute pleasure. Lovely to see you both again.
And we're looking forward to seeing you in the flesh.
Hopefully not too soon, not too far away at all, which would be nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're looking well, mate. It's good to see you.
Thank you, mate. You too. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely weekend.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye now.